And CB, thank you as always for giving me one more opportunity to interact with all my friends in the startup ecosystem. I'm delighted that CII has recognized their contribution, involved them in their highest decision-making bodies, and I'm sure they will do you proud in the years to come with their contribution of ideas, with their contribution of active interest in the future, and collectively, CII traditionally reflecting hardcore manufacturing and big business, along with the enthusiasm, which is quite infectious actually, that our young startups reflect. I'm sure CII will evolve to be an even better organization in the Amrit Kal that Manoj is referring to earlier today. A global unicorn summit with a clear, well-defined target is a brilliant idea. I think the fact that you've even put a number is good because, as you know, I'm personally a man of numbers. And I do believe unless you have very, very aggressive targets and unless you focus on that, you monitor the achievements against those targets, you can never get there. And once you work in mission mode or work towards a vision which is well articulated, well defined, and act in a fashion that can get you there, nothing is impossible. So I'm sure the 1,000 unicorns you are aspiring to nurture by 2030 is very much in the realm of possibility, very much doable, and engagements such as the one we are having today will only help the entire innovation ecosystem to get another booster dose for the future. And looking at the 95 unicorns that we already have, and of course they've come over a period of 4 or 5 years, but the speed is accelerating. And last year, of course, was a brilliant success story for our startup ecosystem. So looking at that, I think 8 years, 10x growth is something very, very, very feasible. सबसे पहले तो we need a sixer, I think, एक छक्का मारिए जिससे ये 100 क्रॉस हो जाए. And then let's go for it. Let's go for the jugular. In fact, my own sense is that 2022, 15th August, which is still about 4 months away, we should look at getting this ingrained in the entire national psyche. And I was glad that Anjali ji referred to the fact that the startup story has started to percolate in tier 2, tier 3 towns and cities. And people in remote areas, far off areas are also now becoming much more demanding and much more self-confident when they look at their own future. Of course, India as a whole is witnessing a tech revolution of sorts. We have unicorns in fintech, in edtech, in agri-tech, in health tech, e-commerce. There would be almost no area where we don't have innovative new ideas. Even in media, I was seeing the valuation of some companies which has shot up in the last few months pretty significantly because of the increasing use of digital media that we are finding. And I think it's something in which we are all aligned. There is no disconnect between the government, between existing businesses and our new age businesses. We all are aligned. We all want to work together. There's a lot of synergy and there's a lot of potential. I remember about 2 or 3 months after we had started the Startup India National Startup Advisory Council, I got so many ideas coming out of all of you that I realized that the sky is the limit. There's nothing which will hold back India. Once all our young boys and girls start seeing that opportunity, start seeing government acting as a facilitator, and all of you stalwarts as mentors who will handhold them through the journey. And I have personally no doubt at all that just like in our last summit, we had a Startup India Global VC Summit in 2019, where we had set the context of where we see Startup India and the startup ecosystem growing to. I feel that the National Startup Advisory Council is now taking shape as a body that can come up with new ideas, which encourages innovation and also can really promote this idea to our budding entrepreneurs across the length and breadth of India. We are trying on our part to reduce the compliance and regulatory burden. We are hoping it becomes easier to begin, to operate, to grow, and if necessary, even exit from businesses. And I do hope all of you, through the course of this Global Unicorn Summit, will also present your ideas, your concerns, and help us in our work in the days to come. I will certainly be looking forward to receiving the proceedings or the outcomes of this summit in terms of learnings for us and help us set our own agenda right. Dipenda, it was very nice to see the smiling you, full of confidence about the future. I know the kind of difficulties you mentioned in the early days would not be unique to your company. It must have been a story that many of our young startup entrepreneurs faced when they first went out into the market with their ideas, tried to hire talent. In fact, I have a lot of people who now come to me assuming that I'm kind of a part of your startup story and talking about new ideas and then expecting me to tell them what next. And frankly, I'm at a loss. I don't know whom to connect them with. I don't know who will provide them the technology backup. Some of the ideas are pretty good if you ask me. So maybe one of these days in our Startup Advisory Council meeting, Anjali ji, we must discuss where does a guy go from an idea? And can there be some forum or some body, maybe CII can become that incubator or that organization which can be a first stop for such new ideas. And then they need to be connected to the right people, maybe even the right accelerator, incubator, or mentor or whatever, based on the idea. But I felt that gap still exists, that a person does not know where does he go next from the ideation stage. And maybe everybody is not as super smart as Supam or Dipinder. Maybe everybody cannot get connected to Avana Capital as easily as some of these big guys have. But we will need to maybe channelize these thoughts, even telling them wherever required that it's not a good idea. Doesn't look like something which can work. But we need to think in terms of creating that mechanism which can help such ideas. Of course, we'll also have to be careful that nobody steals that idea, tells them, oh, it's a bad idea, not worth pursuing, and goes and pursues it himself. So we'll have to really have some nice, transparent, good mechanisms, and I'd urge all of you to reflect on that. Our startups of late have been offering some outstanding solutions. High quality stuff is coming out of companies which are finding the modern day problems faced by society as fertile ground to come up with innovative solutions. I heard about the Mumbai based Cure AI, which uses deep learning to interpret X-rays and CT scans. So they're using algorithms to find out what to make out of the test reports and helping both doctors and patients in their work. I was informed about Cropin Technologies in Bengaluru, which provides a one-stop software as a service based solutions to farmers and gives them real-time weather updates, which can help them predict crop yields. So these are areas where really our people need help. Our people are looking for solutions. And that's where I think a success of a startup can be actually gauged or can be made faster if he really connects with real-time problems and gives them simple, easy to implement solutions. Friends, there's been huge growth in manufacturing investment of late. I can see the green shoots of investment coming back to India in a big way, particularly private investment. Government investment has been ongoing. The increasing number of imports, other than petroleum, of course, and in fact, for that matter, even petroleum imports, is a sure sign that domestic capex cycle will kind of rekindle. Because when you see the market, when you see that goods are being consumed in a country, goods and services, you find that the investors want to set up manufacturing. When you see petroleum prices hit the roof, our startups will come up with innovative solutions to reduce consumption of petroleum products, improve efficiencies. Ultimately, our EV ecosystem got a boost only when petroleum prices hit the roof. And suddenly it's current coin everywhere. 5 years ago, when we used to talk of electric vehicles, we were looking at government subsidies, government support, government playing the lead role. Today, nobody is talking of government. It's become an economically viable proposition by itself. And I've always held the view that whichever businesses have steered clear from government involvement have seen success stories. And I think most of the unicorns that we have today, the startups, I suspect none of them is really dependent on government for anything. They have stood their own ground. They have created their own space and are a success based on their sheer capability, their grit, their determination, their hard work, their high-tech innovations in engineering, in defense, deep tech, and all of these have been the defining features of our startup success story. We need to, of course, continue to support the startups in the days and years to come. But I'm sure technology will make the impossible possible. And with the increasing use or the rise of digital commerce, the metaverse, newer technologies which are emerging literally by the day, I'm sure new opportunities will be unlocked for both users and the providers to connect. We now need to see how we can leverage all these new technologies, whether it's the metaverse, whether it's deep tech, and how all of these can be useful to boost trade and commerce. As we are aiming to become self-reliant, Atmanirbhar in several sectors, particularly energy and defense. I think there's a lot of white space to be filled up by our startups. And as I said earlier, this can really help us reduce our dependence on imports as well as help us look at bigger markets worldwide. India itself being a billion plus market opens up the benefits of economies of scale, and that will help us become competitive across the world. Another avenue which government would like to promote significantly is space technology. We are opening it up very rapidly to private players, and ISRO is looking at collaborations also. We have Pawan Goenka now actively involved in this effort, and I'm sure some of our high-tech space-related startups can cash in on this emerging opportunity. As the Prime Minister said, don't just keep your dreams local, make them global. And I think all these success stories of startups that we are hearing are gradually moving out. I heard that Zomato is also now looking at operations worldwide in other parts of the world. I'm sure all these success stories that we have will venture out beyond the borders of India and make a mark for themselves, scale up their operations across the world, make them more affordable for people in other parts of the world, both in emerging economies, where they can really provide this as a big service, and in the developed world, where this can help to bring down costs and make our goods and services available to the people at competitive prices. I would urge our venture capital friends to handhold our startups and our innovators as they explore the world as a market. And I'm sure funding will not be a problem for the startups who are looking at a much bigger canvas to operate in. UPI itself is now looking at other markets. They started with Singapore. We'll be looking at other places. I'm in dialogue with a few countries to see if we can take UPI to other countries. And I'm sure our fintech companies also would like to ride on the back of this outward journey of UPI. One pressing issue that I'm sure you're all seized of as we explore other markets and in fact even grow within India in the digital space is going to be cyber security and data privacy. India's own consumer digital economy is expected to grow 8x from $100 billion today to about $800 billion by 2030, your own timeline. How do we ensure that the enormous data collected by all these Ubers and Swiggies and Zomatos and Olas and Paytms and all the others involved in this digital ecosystem is protected, is safeguarded, adheres to privacy concerns, is going to be a matter of great interest both for government and I'm sure for all of you, both as business persons and as enlightened citizens of India. I hope this will also find serious consideration as we evolve and develop our startup ecosystem. One other area that of late I'm finding in the pink papers almost every day is ethics and corporate governance standards. I think we need to strengthen that even in our startup ecosystems. The kind of reports that we are reading of late about revenues, data fraud, tax evasion, these kind of malpractices need to be clipped at an early stage. Otherwise, they'll earn a bad name for our startup world. And we have by and large been insulated from these problems so far. I hope these don't become the norm in the years to come. It'll really kill the entrepreneurial spirit of our young startups and can have very damaging effects in the years to come. I think please do take this subject very, very seriously in all your internal interactions and see if we can set up some standards, maybe by self-regulation within the startup ecosystem. If we can set up certain standards based on which our auditors can then help announce to the world or transparently audit our accounts and inform the world if there is something not up to the standards that we may set as an ecosystem. Clearly, there's no shortcut to success, and these shortcuts always come with a huge price tag. And therefore, I would only urge everybody not to use any of these shortcuts. Think in the long term, create sustainable wealth both for yourselves and for society and the nation. When we look at the way forward, I have only 3 suggestions to make to you today. Anjali ji spoke about the tier 2, tier 3 cities. Sometimes even in the smaller towns and villages, there could be tremendous talent available. I think our startup revolution needs to go in that direction, move in that direction. I'm told that a startup in southern India, Soho, recruits coders from rural areas, literally taking Silicon Valley to rural India. I think I would urge other success stories in the startup world to look at remoter parts of India. You may find some fantastic talent there. Second, little tougher ask probably, but I would like to once again urge all of you to incorporate in India and list in India. If you have an issue, you have problems, please tell us about it. We'll talk to government, we'll talk to other departments within the government, make every effort to solve them. But just for a few dollars more, please don't leave the nation's borders to tax havens and other countries. I would urge all of you to look at India as your market, but also as your nation where you will register, incorporate, work, list, pay your taxes also. But this is your country. There are 1 billion people, billion plus people in this country. Everybody has talent. Everybody is yearning for opportunity. And I think collectively, when we all work together, we'll be able to get the best for our country, from our country. And thirdly, to the venture capitalists, please protect the intellectual property. Give them your expertise to scale up, explore greater capital infusion if required, but help that IP remain in India, serve the world out of India, license it to any part of the world where you want to use it. But let India be the principal beneficiary of the wonderful work that our entrepreneurs and innovators are doing. The Honorable Prime Minister gave a clarion call: be vocal for local. And he also said, let local go global. I think both are mantras that we should take to the next level, and nobody better than our startups to achieve both these mantras. If we all start buying local, if we all start recognizing local talent, if we all make a pitch to encourage our emerging startups, the new guys and girls who come in, help them succeed in life, encourage them to see that their products reach markets, encourage B2B engagement or procurement from these startups, help them reach the wider marketplace wherever each one of us has an opportunity to support them. I mean, not my place to say where you should invest, but also help through domestic investment into the startups, whether early stage, whatever different stages at the IPO level, give them access to domestic capital, give them media coverage wherever we can, so that their ideas reach to remoter parts of the country. Give them media coverage also in regional languages, so that other people get encouragement. Respect our startups, respect these young entrepreneurs. I think the founders need to be respected more, need to be encouraged more, and need to have something in their pocket left for them as the company grows. And whether it's a clawback mechanism, whether it's preferred equity, whatever form, I think our founders need to have a share, get their due, get the real share in the growth story that they deserve. Because really they are the heroes of the startup ecosystem. So I do hope investors also will keep that in mind when they are looking at companies, because I genuinely feel that very often our own ingrown domestic talent is not getting the due what they deserve. And I'm given to understand that there are mechanisms even in Silicon Valley in the US where they protect the interests of the original generator of the idea. I don't know if any of you have seen that movie. I'm forgetting the name. Was it Founder only, or the story of McDonald? Which is that movie?
Yes.
The story of McDonald, where the original persons who had actually created that idea, at the end of the day, were left with probably what, $1 million a piece?
Yeah, that was a
And
sad
everything else went to the person who was able to cash in on that idea. Of course, in that case, the founders were obstinate, were not willing to move with the times, were not willing to engage with modern ways of working or marketing. It was unfortunate. But it has left an indelible mark in my mind about how very brilliant ideas can actually come from one source, but that person gets left behind and the rest of the world gets the fruits of those ideas. So let's try and be more accommodative to the founders of our startups. And the moment our young startups get that confidence that they will have a long-term future, I think reaching the 1,000 unicorns by 2030 will become a much, much more easier journey. A lot more dependers and a lot more supams will come out of the system. We'll have a much more sensitive Anjali willing to invest in these companies with empathy towards their own future also. I think the startup ecosystem is safe in the hands of all of you, Manoj, Anjali, Supam, Dipender, and all the others who are on this call with us. Chandrajit, as the elder statesman, will ensure that CII gives due recognition and space to all of you. Chandrajit, since you do pick up on some of my ideas, may I suggest something unrelated to this program?
Yes, please.
And you know, I get ideas out of the blue, but before I forget it. Listening to you and the way you have nurtured the startup over the last few years, may I suggest that you could consider having a Gen Next National Council. Along with your National Council, and I've attended many of your National Councils almost every year for many years now, I think it's time you had a Gen Next National Council of boys and girls, maybe up to the age of 40 or 50. I leave that detail to you. But you'll be able to nurture the talent. And just like the Rajya Sabha, the upper house, where 1/3 of the house retires every 2 years and new people come in, it's both continuity and change. Maybe we need to look at something like that in all of our bodies. I'm saying it to CII, but Anjali and Manoj are all part of our Startup Advisory Council. Can we, in various bodies like that, think of some such mechanisms which give continuity and change and give a greater stake and say for the next generation also? Sorry, Chandrajit, but it just struck me as you were acknowledging me, and I made a note of it right here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We'll do this. We'll do this. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, the journey of 1,000 miles, as they say, begins with the first step. And I'm sure the youth of India are ready, willing, and absolutely empowered to take that step. It is the startups of today which will be the leaders of tomorrow, leaders of India, leaders of businesses in India, leaders of society. We, on our part, are committed to support entrepreneurs and investors in the common pursuit of making India the best place for innovation and startups. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Piyush, for very, very inspiring message as usual. Not only inspiring, but your specific actions. We will report back to you tomorrow evening. We have a session along with Mr. Amitabh Kant, where we finalize all the outcomes of 2 days. We'll come back to you, share with you, get each action into execution mode very, very soon. Specifically, one issue which you said on mentorship, I just want to share with you that under DPIIT, we are planning a mentorship portal, which is the largest portal in the world. And I'm also helping, and very soon we'll come back to you so that, you know, the entrepreneurs which you said they're struggling, they don't get the right person for coaching or mentorship. They get somebody, they have somebody. So this will be available nationally very soon. We'll come back to you with a final product. But there are a lot of actions you have given to us. We have noted down. We will come back to you with all these actions, and I'm sure India will go from 95 to 1,000, do a 10x by 2030, and that goal will definitely be overachieved. Thank you, sir. I'm grateful for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.